Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, and I've been talking about some sorry about I've got lights in the background. Try and move this around. Should have thought about this before I went live actually. God, there's always light somewhere, isn't there? So sorry about the light. This is just literally a temporary thing I thought of. I saw the comment come up on the post about UnRaid and the hard drives and stuff. How it works is, let me just get some discs together and I can sort of go through some of the bits and pieces. So with UnRaid, with the cache, you definitely need a cache drive in your UnRaid box. So I always set them up as SSD because the cache has to be super fast. It's got to be faster than the hard drive itself. The larger the better, basically. You can start off with small drives, but the larger the better. Because the way cache works is let's say you got to have two SSD drives minimum for cache. Because the way cache that I believe, some of these questions I need to go back to UnRaid to ask anyway as well, because I'm not particularly sort of 100% on it. It's a good point you've made as well, so you know who you are. So I've always built my UnRaid with two SSD drives as the main cache because one relies on the other one to be parity. Have got ones with three in there as well, treating it as like UnRaid itself. So the way UnRaid normally would work, not UnRaid the product itself, but UnRaid RAID itself is three drives minimum. So one drive acts as like a parity drive, the other two drive holds your data. So that way if you lose one of your drives, it can still make up the volume can still be online, you're safe. You take that drive away, replace it with a fresh new drive, put it back in there, away you go, and it will rebuild that drive up. So the cache side on UnRaid works the similar same. You've got two drives. I think it basically uses one drive as a parity, so it's duplicating the first disk to the second disk. So you can have one disk failure, which means your system down, or it sort of works. I haven't really fully tested it, but I think with this new one I'm building at the moment, it's going to be an opportunity to really show it how it works. So the way I will build the UnRaid at the moment is three SSD drives. So one can be set up as parity, the other two drive becomes available for data, because when you set up in the UnRaid software, it will always show one drive as a parity drive, the other two as your main volume. So you add those two drives together and adds it up. Now when it comes to running the main hard drives, they work differently, because the way it works is, it's hard to show it because I haven't got my camera holder. So these are the four drives. So let's say 4 or 3, doesn't matter how many it's the drives in there. Okay, so you got all these. Let's just do 3 for instance, so I can fit it on the screen. You can see. So these drives act as like long-term storage. So on UnRaid, when you got your cache drive pool set up, it's quite easy to do. It's just in the software, which I shall show you another time. Once you've got it set up, you can talk, when you create folders and shared folders, you can actually say, do I want this share folder to be part of the cache pool? And basically what it does, it stores data there currently working, and every hour, I think by default, it will take that copy of data and put it onto your drives. Okay. You can schedule it to run more frequently than 1 hour. I think the default is set up for 24 hours. So you run off the cache drive all 24 hours, and it all depends on the size of your cache pool as well. So if you're working on files bigger than your cache pool, then it will literally store them here and trying to cache the small part of the files you're working constantly on the cache pool. So make sure your cache pool is bigger than your drive volume for long-term storage. So once you've got your drive set up, then you say, yes, I want this folder to be cached on the SSD drive. It'll carry on working off that all day long. And at the end of the 24 hours, at midnight, it'll copy what's on there not being used onto these drives itself here. If the files are in constant use and has always been used, it'll cache the data back that way for while you're working on it, and then it'll just keep putting data backs and forwards. Now, running on 3 SSD drives, one drive fails, the parity drive will build the other 2 drives up, which still keeps you online, take it away. I'm not sure if you build it with one SSD drive, then it's not very good. It's not going to work properly. It'll cache files, but if you lose a drive, you lose data on that side. Now, when I do, like for instance on a network, let's say I always build my VMs on the SSD drive, so it stays on the cache pool. It doesn't come over to these drives at all, it just stays that side. Because when you look at UnRaid, when you set up a VM, it always points it to the the cache drive pool itself. It doesn't put them on here. It does not exist. I've looked at that before, it doesn't. Now, when you're running on a network with multiple users, running Word, Excel, PowerPoint files, CAD files, or anything files on your network, I always point them to this volume here, because 9 times out of 10, my clients have, my old clients, existing clients, whatever, normally has a 100 megabit network anyway. So running off an SSD or here, they don't really see much difference because they just work. So I leave them on this one here, because depends on your side of volume. If you've got a client that's got, like, I don't know, terabytes of files, and they work on all of them all day long, then you need to make sure you've got a big enough SSD cache pool to have that cached over there, and stuff, for them to keep accessing those files, because in cache pool it's meant to be working on files you constantly use and then keep tearing them back to the drives here. Now this is the bit this is a quick question, this is the bit I'm like thinking as well, because the way when you write to this, because when you put the disks in there, so if you've got 3 disks, right, it will see these 2 disks as the main volume space. So these are 3 terabyte drives. So this will show my system, I got 6 gig in my system, and this drive is the parity drive. So I assume it works the same way as the cache pool. But when I look at the volume, when I look at these volumes separately, because it does treat each drive separately, it stores some files here, some here, some here. So when you browse those drives, you can see what it's doing. So as it's as you're copying data down on your folder, so on your network point of view, you'll see one folder on your PC, but that folder is actually spread across these disks. And as you're copying stuff into them, it's like placing along each drive. And I'm thinking, well, that's not how RAID works, because RAID will scatter the drives so they make them unreadable, so you can't read them directly with, but creates a volume that goes across the whole lot. And one always acts as a parity, so if that drive fails, you've still got 2 drives and you're still up and running. But the way it's copying data across, it shows that it's spanning the files across. So not all the files existing on one drive, they're actually scattered. And I think if it loses a drive like that, that's nearly partial my folder gone. So I'm confused if it's how it's built these 2 up. So, but when you install, like, I've got one with got three disks in there, so it only shows 6 terabytes available, and it shows this one as a parity disk, which doesn't count that volume with this one separately. And I've got one here that's got 4 of these in its volume, and again it shows these 3 as my volume, which will be 9 terabyte storage, but doesn't count this one. So one of these does count as a parity. So I assume it's the principle of UnRaid, of RAID. One of them is a parity drive on that side, which is confusing, because they were saying also the parity drive can be bigger than your volume space. So you can have 3, 3, 3, and 10 or 20 if you wanted to. Which, and then it's like, that's even more confusing as well, because standard RAID, through a controller card, it will take all those, and they have to be the same size. Because if you got 3, 3, 3, and 10, standard RAID on a controller will reduce this drive down to the same size as this drive, so it's all even, and that's how it works. But UnRaid's different. UnRaid doesn't like a RAID controller card taking the job on for it, because you have to, like from these LSI cards that I use, you have to put it in IT mode, which basically means UnRaid will manage the RAID itself. But each disk is readable, like as if I plugged it into a PC. And normally RAID isn't. If you could, and plus you have to know which drive connection it is to on the controller card, and you have to put them in the right order. But UnRaid works differently. It takes the serial numbers from each of the drives, so it doesn't matter what order you put them back into your hardware. It knows which one goes in which order, which is good. But from a RAID point of view, it's like a bit confusing. So with this build, I've got to get a lead for it. I'm still waiting for a power lead to come through, because I lost the one I needed for the GPU. So when I get that in, we'll build a cache pool up. So I've got 3 drives. Well, we'll reduce it to 3 drives. Oh, next I've got 4 in now. Reduce it to 3 drives. And what we'll do is we'll install these 3 disks. And I've got plenty of data to play with that I've already got backed up elsewhere anyway. So we'll dump a load of data onto this. We'll dump a load of data on the cache drive. And what we'll do is we'll pull stuff out, the system live, to see how it handles. Where does the parity take over? Does it delete? Does it copy? We'll road test this. This will be a really good video to do, and that should hopefully answer your questions out there, and it'll answer my question, because if it's doing what it's doing with your discs, one that sent me a comment, then I'm a bit worried about my data. Is my data actually 100% safe? I know recently one of my SSD drives in the last, I think, like last 3 months went. They couldn't see it online. Lucky enough, I had 3 SSD drives, so one drive went. So I pulled it out. I could still see all my cache volumes on my cache pool, which is working fine. Nothing was missing. That drive went off because I couldn't read it at all. I tried to put it in another drive, couldn't read it at all. So it went back off to Western Digital, got it under warranty, they replaced it with a new drive, brought it back, plugged it in, bang, it worked. I didn't lose anything. So that bit I know definitely works. So that's safe. So as long as you have 3 SSDs in there, you're safe. Or minimum 2. I always go 3. Go for 3, definitely. So definitely got a parity drive, and these 2 give you a bigger volume anyway on that side. But if you've got 2 1 terabyte SSDs, then you can go away probably minimum 2 then. So you've got a decent amount to cache stuff on. But this I haven't really tested. Because I'm confused. I can read them, I can see the files, I can see how he scatters it across. There isn't a copy on each one. It's just bits here, bits there, bits there. I'm thinking, well, if it's a parity drive, it shouldn't be readable in the first place. It shouldn't have files and volumes on it. It should carry something that's unreadable that makes these 2 drive data up and stuff. And that's interesting as well, because if that's classed as a parity drive, and the parity drive goes, you know, data should be still, well, it is confusing, isn't it? So we'll do some testing, proper hardware testing, proper real life testings. We'll dump data on this, dump data on that. We'll pull drives out in different orders and see what we get. That's going to be probably the best way of doing it, explaining it as well. I've been speaking long enough and rabbiting on about this same subject on here. So let's get and do some testing with it. So I've got all of that cable today. Hopefully that'll come tomorrow. And in the next couple of days, we can do some full testing on it, all different scenarios. So if there are any scenarios out there you would like me to try on the UnRaid side to test things out with, start putting a comment below for me. Because when I start testing this, I can read your comments and try it all out and video it as well, so you guys know how it all works. So thanks for watching, guys, and thanks for the fantastic comments so far. And if you're not a subscriber, hit that subscribe button and the notification button for my next video. Yeah, whatever I heard, raid, I see bug screening. And I'll see you on the next one, guys. Cheers, thank you very much.